Hey, everybody, you're listening to Angelneers, the podcast. Angelneers is a Silicon Valley community for startup builders where founders and operators share their firsthand knowledge on how to build and scale startups. I'm your host, Oleg Kujikov, and our guest today is Gil Allouche, a co-founder and CEO of Metadata, the autonomous demand generation platform for B2B enterprises. Today, we're talking with Gil about helping B2B marketers focus on strategy and creativity by automating the routine and repeatable parts of marketing campaigns. But before we get into all of that, Gil, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Oleg, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're excited to have you and excited to hear from you, learn from you. So let's start by learning a little bit about you. Tell us about yourself. How did you become a founder and a tech entrepreneur?
Let's see. I always wanted to be, I should say, legitimate entrepreneur. I started my illegitimate businesses when I was pretty young, selling firecrackers in Israel and, hacking. And I did all kinds of odd jobs as a kid to make money. I finally knew I wanted to start a legitimate business when I was maybe 24 years old. I was working as an engineer, and I went to this MBA conference and asked for a school in the US. It could be my ticket to starting a business here, and that was the beginning of it. Age of 25, a year later, I was already in Boston.
So that's when you first considered a legitimate business and not the other ones you've been running.
I've been entrepreneurship wise, yes. I had some regular jobs as an engineer and army before that, so on and so forth. But yeah, I always wanted to start this software business that seemed to be like the best route for me. And so I went to Babson College, which is a school that is known in Boston for entrepreneurship. I spent 2 years there, and I worked. Well, I had to pay that $100,000 tuition. So I worked in marketing for some time, and being an engineer and working in marketing, I saw all the things that can be automated, and basically I wanted to make myself a commodity, and that's why I started Metadata.
Babson, I had a friend there. I had a friend from high school that went there. I think he liked it a lot. Atif Patel, shout out to you if you're listening to the show. But yeah, let's keep going. Tell us about this first idea you had. Actually, was Metadata your first venture into entrepreneurship, or was it something else?
I always say that Metadata is the first startup that is going somewhere. But no, I had others. I had one startup called OneYell that was actually a great idea. I even got a patent pending for it. But I mostly didn't have the guts to go all in because legally I wasn't allowed to. And I was too young to understand it doesn't matter. And two, I had to take a financial bet, which I wasn't prepared to at the time, but that was a really good idea that I had at first. And even Metadata, actually, the product that we have today wasn't the first. It wasn't the first. It was always what I wanted to do, but it's not at all what I ended up starting with. I ended up starting with a completely different product, more in the data space. But after 6 months or so, I had about 1,000 users, and a lot of them were not happy because I wasn't interested in building what they wanted. And so I realized quickly to pivot into what we are today.
Can you talk about that pivot? What kind of decisions did you have to consider? What changes were made?
So that was 2016. We had a piece of software that we built that basically you could enrich emails. You can build audio. You can mostly enrich emails, and it kind of automated the process of building data sets via APIs and some web scraping. And we pivoted from that to a business that essentially runs campaigns for you. The reasoning behind it was that we realized that while the competition is fierce for data and it's only becoming a commodity, there are only more and more data companies out there. The problem that we ended up solving was a problem that no one wanted to touch because it was so complicated to solve. And so we decided to completely change the company and go towards the other one. And it was painful because, first of all, we had to let go of customers who were paying and were happy and needed that thing right away. And two, because we had to build a whole new product and focus on a completely different set of problems. And by that time, we burned some money. But it was a very good decision to make. And the earlier you can make those, the better.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Good advice. And so can you give us the elevator pitch for Metadata? Like, what do you guys do today?
Yeah, so think about us as a replacement for a performance marketing agency. So marketers in the last, I don't know, decade have been struggling with managing a growing number of technologies, channels, data sources. They need to constantly manage those in order to create pipeline for their sales counterpart. A lot of the work, or vast majority of their work, is technical, repetitive, and mundane. It's very data-driven work, like setting up campaigns, optimizing them, doing attribution models, demand models, testing all kinds of creatives and contents and channels and campaign times and audiences. It's a very tedious technical work, which is perfectly fit for a person like myself, an engineer. And so there are many marketers out there who are benefiting from this chaos, but vast majority of marketers are suffering. They want to be more like Don Draper from Mad Men, and that's not at all how their day is looking like. They're not drinking whiskey, and they're not like traveling and doing cool strategy presentations. They're like, they have 7 spreadsheets open, and they're doing like A/B testing on a creative and checking the cost per click. Like, that's a nightmare. And so what we built is essentially a piece of software that does all of the data acquisition, all of the campaign execution, optimization, all the attribution analysis, all the reporting. All of that work is done behind the scene by a software that can scale up and down depending on how big the quarter is going to be, or the year, how much revenue and pipeline they need. And it focuses people, marketing people, back in tasks that they like: creative, content, and strategy.
Got it. And so now that we understand a little bit more about what you guys do, can you talk about like why you do it? What's your mission?
My mission is to fix MarTech. Marketing technology space is one of the busiest spaces out there. There are, I think, something like 9 or 10,000 companies in our space. Many, many, many technologies. And this is only growing, and it's good. It means that there's a lot of innovation in the marketing and sales world. My mission is to fix it, and instead of overwhelming both the marketers and the operators in this space, and then what is likely to happen is what happened before, to try to fix it, which is to do consolidation. Instead, I'm trying to build an operating system that essentially will abstract all that complexity for B2B marketers. Make it extremely easy and fun to do the execution, and so that you're able to focus on the value add. That's my mission for the company.
Well said. So let's get into kind of modern day marketing, or help me understand like marketing today. There's this term, account-based marketing. What is that, and how does it compare with traditional inbound marketing?
Yeah, so account-based marketing is a methodology, and it's a simple methodology that says you're a B2B company, meaning you're a business selling to other businesses. By definition, unlike Coca-Cola, or Pepsi or McDonald's, their target audience is almost everyone. So they may as well spray and pray, put a billboard here, a commercial on TV. It's going to capture the right people because almost every person is the right person. While in a B2B space, I'm targeting, let's say, 100,000 companies in the world. That's a big total addressable market. If you address 100,000 companies, that's a lot. So let's say that you address 100,000 companies in the world, and you only address particular people within that company too. Let's say you sell a load balancer, or you sell a storage solution, or a cybersecurity solution, or a marketing solution. There are only so many people in the company that care about your solution. Otherwise, they're focused on something completely different. So the HR director, for a marketing system, let's say there are 10 people who might be involved, either as an influencer or in the buying decision. Account-based marketing focuses you only on the right set of companies that are essentially your ideal customer profile. So you never ever spend another dollar or a minute of your time on a company that is not a best fit for you. And then you build all of your marketing material and marketing campaigns around that concept. So even your sales folks, they are focused on a set number of accounts. You can give your salesperson 1,000 accounts that they focus on, or 500 accounts that they focus on, and nothing else outside of that. That gives her or him the ability to focus all of their time and all of their budget that they're allocated to go after those accounts and after those particular people within those accounts. That is essentially the methodology of account-based marketing.
What are some of the key challenges of account-based marketing? I mean, it sounds good, right? Let's be a little bit more precise with what we do, a little bit more focused with our money, but it's not this kind of shotgun method. So yeah, what are some of the challenges that ABM presents?
what you said is very accurate. It sounds very good and it makes sense. And account-based marketing is exactly that. It's just marketing that makes sense, that is appropriate for B2B context. The biggest challenge with account-based marketing is what the perception of what it actually means. And for a vast majority of marketers, ABM means programmatic advertising. Or sending packages to like a particular set of accounts. I think the biggest challenge in account-based marketing is the gap of understanding from the concept. Okay, I get it. I only need to focus on particular accounts and people within those accounts. To how do I actually execute around it? And I think if we opened up a set of tactics for companies in some sort of a journey, they can find out for their company what does that mean to execute account-based marketing. That's going to do a lot of good for marketers, because I do think there's a lot of enigma still, and sometimes there's a perception that you can buy a certain solution or technology or hire an agency and they'll kind of do it for you. While with many methodologies, it's usually a cross-function kind of effort.
Can you talk about how technology today might help address some of those challenges?
Yeah, for sure. So, for example, you can leverage data sources today that can tell you everything about your total addressable market. So, for example, let's say you are I don't know, a new sales development tool, or something that is, I don't know, the new version of Outreach or SalesLoft or what have you. Today, you don't need to start from scratch. Like your baseline today, giving all the data sources out there, should make you very, very effective. You should be able to purchase today a list of companies using Outreach or SalesLoft, or you can buy a data set of companies who are currently looking for sales development tools. You can even see which companies these are and market to them while they're in a buying decision. So technology today is actually very sophisticated. It's usually the marketer that needs guidance towards what for them, for their market, for their particular buyer and segment in the space, in the market, like what are the set of tools and data and channels that they need to use to be successful. That's where they need to focus usually their effort. But there are tools today that can go into that can make the data available for you. There are technologies today that are available to target very, very accurately. Like, for example, LinkedIn conversational ads is a new but very effective way of generating demand, because LinkedIn will give you essentially rent their inbox function to you, and you'll be able to upload a list of accounts and particular people within those accounts with a message that you send ahead of time. And unlike those spammy emails that people get, this one will be paid for. It will be promoted on the top of their inbox. They'll make sure not to spam. So if they're not interested they won't see that again, and they only get so many a month. That is, for example, an fairly easy tactic you can deploy in the account-based marketing world, and the analytics you get back is very, very effective. At Metadata, we integrated that campaign type within the first quarter that it was available, and it's important to leverage those technologies, because you'll be able to generate quick ROI, and that will give you appetite to really put more effort into ABM.
There is a kind of a vast amount of technology. There's a lot of technology across ABM software, including account-based management, account-based intelligence, A/B advertising, A/B digital personalization, account-based execution, and even account-based orchestration. Where does metadata fit into all of those?
I guess we're more in the execution, orchestration, but then MetaMatch gives you the data part as well. It's something that we're struggling with as well. Like there are a few elements in the account-based marketing that we cover very, very well. I would say execution for us is the area where we think we're the best, and the area where we're focusing a lot, which is how to make use of the existing channels, technologies, data that is available either out there or for a company particular that already acquired, a customer already acquired particularly, and maximize the usage. Just remove the human limitation from the formula. It doesn't matter if you have 10 people or 100 people, you'll be able to execute at such a scale that you would really know. First, you won't have to do any of the heavy lifting, so you'll be able to focus your team on value add tasks that humans do better. But as importantly, you'll be able to scale and really test out everything so that you would really know what works and what doesn't work for your marketing team. I'll just give you a quick anecdote. One of our customers, it's an enterprise customer, they were able to run with our solution 13 campaigns in 6 months. That is humanly impossible. To run a complex sales kind of attribution and run all of those campaigns and audit them and monitor them and optimize them day in, day out in a complex sales cycle, it's very complicated without, of course, hiring like hundreds of people. And that is something that you can suddenly have, a power that you can suddenly have when you leverage a system like Metadata.
How about competition? Do you compete mostly against the likes of HubSpot or other startups?
We absolutely do not compete with HubSpot. They are a partner of ours, and many of their customers are using Metadata. We compete with the status quo or some of the execution work that agencies do. That is who we compete with. So you can choose whether you want to hand off the execution to a completely different company or agency to do it for you, or you can essentially leverage a system like Metadata in which you will still retain all the knowledge of what works, what doesn't work. It will still use all of your creative content, so on and so forth, but it will be able to do all the work for you. So you'll be able to scale as if you scaled partnering with an agency or hiring like 20 people to any campaign managers to your company. You'll be able to have the same scale, if not more, and retain all that knowledge and have a computer essentially run all that execution for you.
So you mentioned that you are kind of in this account-based execution and orchestration area, and those are kind of your strengths, right? So how does Metadata help its users attack those challenges better than some other tools might?
What sets us apart? The two components in our systems, the ones that we have, I think we have 5 patents by now. Those are around, one is the targeting. So making sure that our customers never, ever target the wrong company or the wrong persona within the company. Even if they're targeting only 100,000 companies, we make sure that they're only targeting the 20 individuals and 10 individuals that are relevant, and then spend all of their money getting them, but not wasting $1 on someone else. That ability to target like that, like laser targeting, across all of the channels that are historically consumer channels that were locked for B2B marketers, that's our first differentiators. Most B2B marketers, they don't even think about Facebook as an appropriate channel. But with us, because of our targeting graph that allows them to access those channels, the Pinterests of the world, the Quoras of the world, and be very successful in getting that inventory engaged, that is one big advantage. The other one is the experimentation. So how do our customers essentially test out every creative, every content they have, every campaign type that is available in all the channels? How can they test all the different segments, market segments that they have? Companies by technology, by buyer intent, companies by size, by revenue, by location, by usage, so on and so forth. And essentially running through that mix and experimenting at such a scale, that is the second advantage that we have. And so I would say that the laser targeting and then the experimentation, the ability to experiment at scale, those are things that we do that today aren't available anywhere else in the B2B space. In the B2C space, in the consumer, Coca-Cola, McDonald's kind of space, there are companies that are in the mobile space as well. There are companies that have been very successful, in that niche. But in the B2B, it's completely differentiated.
Okay. So a quality account-based marketing strategy, it requires complicated multi-touch efforts aimed at target accounts. This is a lot of effort, so you want to make sure that the outcome is going to be worth it. It's going to be worth the investment. So how big should your customer's average deal size be to justify like doing this kind of account-based marketing effort?
Yeah, that's a great question. I usually say that, as long as you sell to a B2B company and you have a complex sale, I think it's worthwhile going through that exercise, because you'll really know and have an understanding of who you're going after and not just try to sell to everyone. for us, usually companies that sell at, I don't know, a minimum of like 15, 20K average deal size, those would be qualified usually to go after, to like do a proper ABM and to start executing with, like with a solution like Metadata. I think if you're software company that sells their product for like, I don't know, 999 per year, you might want to consider like product led growth, inbound marketing, any way you want to combine and have a diverse marketing mix. So you don't want to take all your eggs in one basket anyway. But as a lower dollar amount kind of product, you would want something that scales faster and less expensively.
Okay, that all makes sense. So next, let's talk about metadata itself. We already mentioned briefly in sort of the beginning of the show, kind of how it started, but let's dive into that. What's the origin story of your company? Did you found it with anyone else? Who's behind Metadata?
Yeah, so I started it in 16. I was invited to an event. I think it was like a Bessemer Venture event to talk to a few CMOs. I was talking about my methodology of using data and experimentation, and there was a lot of interest in that meeting. So much interest that in the lunch break, I went on my LinkedIn and I changed it to like founder stealth, or I don't know whatever I put there. It was basically like a move, making the move, like, all right, I'm doing this. And then when I was back at that meeting, people asked me like, oh, where do you work? And I told them, well, actually, I just started a company doing exactly that. And that was kind of the initial moment. It was on my own. I did have a few great folks joining me along the way. So I had Jan, who was my co-founder, and he left after, I think something like 2 years. And I would say today the leadership team that I have is my chosen co-founders, if you will. So the people I work with today are, every person in their field are extremely experienced, meaning much more experienced than I am in that area. And so that's today we kind of lead together.
Next, talk about the timing. Why is now the right time for your company?
Now is the right time for the company for a few reasons. First of all, everything is moving online. So people working from home changes the way people can be targeted. People being engaged online and on social networks, meaning that there's a lot more marketing that is going to be effective in places like the metaverse, like Facebook, like LinkedIn, like Twitter, like Pinterest, so on and so forth. These are going to be the areas where advertising is going to happen essentially over there. Cookies are going away from the world. So Microsoft, Apple, Facebook, they're fighting and they're becoming wall gardens where you can't, unless you integrate it with that particular network, you're out. There are no more cookies that can give you access to the people. So us, Metadata, our entire targeting graph is based on PII, not on cookies, which makes it super, super helpful. During last year, when everyone was working from home, and a little bit today too, our targeting is superior because it doesn't matter if you're working from home or you're working from the office. We're targeting you on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Google, and so you'll see the ad, you'll see the message. All of these things make it very much necessary from a consumer side. From a company side, we wouldn't be able to build this a few years ago, because big data, machine learning, and most importantly, the technologies that we integrate and operate today, they didn't have a RESTful API that was sophisticated enough for us to integrate to and operate. Even today, it's kind of a challenge. We're design partners to more than 3 of our partners right now, like big companies, some of them public, and we help them build some of those APIs because they never had a company using it the way we do. For all those reasons, this is becoming the biggest thing for us right now.
Okay, let's take a look under the hood then. Talk about your technology stack and maybe what kind of important choices you might have had to make early on with that.
Technology stack. I mean, we have a modern technology stack, with all the nice, good things with Databricks, and I think we're using Java. We have a few good, I think, Elasticsearch and a few other databases that helps us capture and encrypt the data. I think we're using microservices, and very much a microservice approach so that everything can work in parallel. A lot of I would say one of the biggest things about our architecture, funny enough that it's also on the structure of the team, but also on the structure of the actual machine. It's very much distributed, where it can shrink or expand based on the needs. I remember in the past, customers would have to wait a few hours if they build a big audience, and that's like not a problem today. Like it doesn't matter. Like there are so many machines. If you are one of those customers who will consume a lot, they'll just open a new machine for you, and you'll be able to work in parallel. So a lot of asynchronicity. To go into the details of particularly which technologies for every stack and every structure, I'll have to bring my VP of engineering into that picture.
Okay. Sounds like another podcast. How about next? Can you describe how you use machine learning to generate demand from target accounts and convert them to customers faster than the older legacy methods?
Well, we use them everywhere. So we use machine learning, for example, when we establish a baseline for who is an ideal customer profile, what are the good channels, so on and so forth. So the first step with metadata is to connect your existing systems to the platform. And the metaphor is as if you just hired a new VP of demand gen, and she is going into all the systems. She's going into Salesforce. She's going into your HubSpot. She's going into your Facebook, your LinkedIn, all of it, your email, your Gong. It will try to understand what has been working and what hasn't. From Salesforce, for example, you can understand, you can learn who is a good customer, who isn't. What is the size of customer that you have a fast sales cycle, higher ACVs, more close one, so on and so forth. And which are the kind of accounts that are a red herring, kind of accounts that you should stay away from, that they don't close or it takes forever, they churn when they close, not a high ACV, they don't grow. And that's, for example, a quick machine learning regression model that can tell you, hey, look, for company A, for customer A, this is your ideal customer profile, this isn't. These are the kind of attributes that are important for you. For you, it might be the size of company or the technology they use. For another company, it could be that the attributes are number of employees or location, So it will tell you what attributes are important, and then what's the coefficiency, how important are they? And based on that model, the output, it will be able to actually show you which accounts currently fit that model and which account you should go after that are lookalikes. So that would be one use, for example. Another use for machine learning heuristics, a decision tree would be our experimentation engine, the ability to take tens of thousands of components or variables and play with them. Like, let's try all the different channels and campaign types and audiences and the different creative, different calls to action, different background colors, different creative images, different URLs, different senders if it's an email, all of those variables, and essentially constantly, almost like a real-time game, it will mix and match. It will make decisions. Okay, I'm going to switch this creative. I'm going to try this budget. I'm going to halt this campaign completely. I'm going to quadruple the budget on this one. We use machine learning for that because otherwise we couldn't hire enough people in the world to make all the decisions in real time.
Very cool. Very cool. Okay, next, can you talk about some of the key milestones that you've achieved on your journey? It's been 5 years, so I'm sure you've had some.
I would say having the first person joining me, working with me on this full time, that was a big win. I remember Jan joining me was cool moment. Still a good friend. When we had our first customer paying more than 100,000, I think it was, I remember which customer it was, closing that $100,000 customer for the first time. It was amazing. Honestly, the first customer was $100 per month. It was also amazing. I also remember that. And then, I think reaching 10 million in ARR, big moment. A few acquisition offers were very monumental. And I would say last but definitely not least, when some of the folks joined me, like when some of the people in my leadership team joined and said, like, I want to do this with you, especially when it was earlier, when shit was hitting the fan all the time and we were like almost dying every moment, that was very empowering because it's someone else that believes in this crazy idea and thinks like, yeah, this is very likely to happen. And it gives you more confidence that might actually happen.
Awesome milestones. Next, let's talk about your customers. Yeah, tell us about them. What does your customer look like? What's their ideal profile?
So mid-market companies to enterprise are the ones that we focus on most. We actually we have enterprise customers as well, but we don't actively go after them, mostly because of the sales cycle, and there's a lot of demand from the mid-market side. So thinking about companies like Drift, Yelp, Zoom Video, Oyster, Redis Labs, Gartner, like all of those companies are customers of Metadata. I would say on the lower end, if you have a minimum of 50 employees and you raise a lot of money and you're hungry to grow, all the way if you have like 5,000 employees and you still want to grow and you're looking to automate all of the demand generation, only B2B companies, so no B2C, only B2B. And they use the modern stack, so they use Salesforce as a CRM and one of the top 4 marketing automation systems, which is Eloqua, Marketo, HubSpot, or Pardot. And then finally, you have a digital budget of at least 30K or so per month. And there are plenty of companies that fit this profile. You're a good profile.
Okay, and next, talk about how a happy customer uses metadata. What's the use case for them? What does it look like?
So they usually spend the first day or two onboarding. That means integrating all of their systems and, of course, ingesting all of their creative content, so on and so forth, into the platform. From that moment on is really understanding the goals, the pipeline goals for the quarter, for the year. So I'm trying to generate 1 million, 10 million, 100 million in pipeline this quarter or this year. What is the budget? What is the marketing mix that we're playing with? And then trying out tactics. Let's try an account-based marketing tactic on display and on social. Let's try a demand gen tactic, a lead gen, a brand awareness, a sales acceleration tactic. They essentially get recommended those playbooks that metadata can support. And once they choose a playbook, they configure it. They configure the playbook. They hit the execute button, and the system start generating results. Now, that's where the real magic happens. When the execution is up and running, when there are, 50, 100 campaigns up and running at least, sometimes thousands, and results are starting to come in, meaning inbound leads from named accounts that trigger new pipeline, then the system starts learning, okay, what is working? Which one, what is generating pipeline, what isn't? What is generating pipeline the most effectively? What can scale? If I put $1 million more, can I generate the same amount of results for the same price or better? And then what closes into a successful close one? And then based on that, it learns. Like if it will learn after 2 months that the people that are actually closing the deal for you, or the real decision makers and influencers are different than the initial audiences that you created, it will automatically add those new people to new audiences. So it will learn from the sales cycle just like a human or a team would.
So this is kind of the experimentation leg of your platform that I think you mentioned earlier, and that is what makes your customers happy. That's what they love to use. Are there any other favorite features or functionalities that are on your platform that we haven't mentioned already that a happy customer might really get delight from using?
I think many customers like to also use the meta match, which our ability to create all those targeted B2B audiences and enable them across channels that otherwise were locked to B2B marketers. So Google AdWords and Facebook and Quora, these are channels that B2B marketers are deploying now and executing through the metadata platform, but they generate the audience with MetaMatch. And so that I think is another area. And maybe the last one is attribution. Our attribution is so harsh. It's it's trying to be very critical. So because many marketing tools, you go to the dashboard and it always shows this like unbelievable picture of all this attribution to marketing and specifically to that technology that gave you that pipeline. And then there's no much street cred and no much, authenticity in that. I think the metadata dashboard is very, very critical because most importantly, it's being used to make decisions, to actually decide among 100 campaigns which one is going to survive and get most budget and going to be quadrupled on. And for that, you need to be very critical. We use the same logic for attribution. And for that reason, many of our customers, they trust the dashboard, and it becomes kind of the way they report upwards as well. And I think that's something that we're very proud of, because it just brings that level of transparency that I think we, B2B marketers are seeking more of.
What type of customer might not be a great fit to benefit from your platform?
Yeah, and we actually published again fairly honest blog post about it, to really focus someone when they're considering. So customers who are still earlier on, so I would say smaller than 50 employees, or even at 50 employees, but still are on the path to get product market fit, not really sure, still things are changing and volatile, that's usually not a good time for metadata, because you need to survive at that stage. You're still trying to figure out who you are, and you can't really spend money on trying to scale when you don't really need to scale just yet. So those customers too small are the biggest misfits usually for metadata. Those customers may benefit from MetaMatch because it will help them focus at least on the right total addressable market, but without scaling just yet. On the other end of the spectrum would be companies that are, so customers that their product, so that their audience, sorry, is not necessarily a B2B audience. So if they're selling to like, if the total addressable market is not well addressed within the B2B targeting graph, then they won't be a good fit. For example, if they're targeting B2C companies, if they're targeting like, I don't know, lawyers, or they're targeting freelancers, then they're less of a fit. Like the system can do it, but it's not ideally fit for them. I would say those are the two kind of areas that are not in the focus of metadata at that time.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Really great. And thank you for being candid on that. Thought it was a great answer. You mentioned this earlier, the end of cookies, right? How might the end of third-party cookies affect your customers, the B2B marketers?
So my customer is none, because well, hopefully that's the prediction, and because the reason for it is because we use Maze and PII, mobile device IDs, and emails and cell phones and all the personally identifiable information that we can use. And so when we do the matching, we do actual matching on the different networks. So there is less dependability on cookies. How it's going to affect the world of B2B marketing in general? Two ways. One is targeting, and two, attribution. Targeting is going to be limited, because if Google doesn't take cookies or Facebook doesn't take cookies, then how are you going to find those people that you're after? Either you decide you're not going to go after them because Facebook is not opening up an easy way for you to target those people, or you'll have to figure out a way to do that. Secondly, it's attribution. With cookies, you sometimes can use that to kind of guesstimate, oh yeah, someone saw my ad, they may have not clicked all the way to conversion, but they visited this website 20 minutes later, and then they did this, and then they did that, and that's how I can attribute to them buying this product. Without cookies, you may not be able to do that, and so you may need to be a little bit more, change your attribution methodology, essentially.
Okay, let's talk about the go-to-market and the business model. What's your strategy for go-to-market and how you reach customers?
Well, I hired a really great marketing team. That's really how we do that. But no, joke aside, we use our own software and we experiment at scale constantly. We generate a lot. Over 70% of our pipeline is generated by marketing, and our revenue as well. So it's very well aligned that marketing is leading the pipeline generation for the company. They do it a lot with metadata, with experimentation, with paid acquisition. We also are putting a lot of effort into content. So the conference that they just had, we had almost 5,000 registrants, and I think they release a new content piece weekly, if not more than once a week. And this is really ungated, high value content, which is kind of what B2B marketers are at this point are looking and expecting for. So those two ways are a lot of ways that we're generating pipeline. And of course, there's a lot of good word of mouth, which is always the best way. So happy customers that become advocates of our company.
Awesome. Yeah, word of mouth, great sign. Also, I think it's called eating your own dog food. Good sign when you kind of use your own tools. So good to hear that. It's a positive indicator. Next, let's talk about community. Account-based approaches thrive when you focus on long-term relationship building. One way to do this is by creating a community. Is that something that Metadata is doing, and how are they doing it?
We're literally in the earlier stage of that. Yeah, something that we want to do, not something that we've necessarily invested in a lot. I would say our first conference earlier, like a couple months ago, was the first sign to it.
All right, then let's move on. Revenue generation. How do you make money?
It's a software. It's a SaaS model, pretty classic. So think about HubSpot model. We're very similar. Different integrations, different, depending on the capacity, on the volume of usage, etc. But it's basically annual or multi-year contracts within a particular tier, and that's kind of how we make money. It's a classic software as a service.
Lastly, let's move to closing. To recap the episode, what's one thing about metadata that makes you stand out from the crowd?
Experimentation, ability to scale experimentation and execution.
How about challenges? What are some of the challenges you face as a founder that might keep you up at night?
Scaling. I am now facing a completely different set of challenges that I faced last year. So how do I hire? How do I keep the culture, keep the bar high? Yeah, these are the areas that I am focusing on right now.
Okay. And lastly, can you share something significant or maybe surprising that you learned on your entrepreneurial journey in the last 12 months?
Yeah, I started this AI company because as an engineer with a lot of work happening in my left hemisphere of the brain, I thought I would be able to automate so much that I won't need to learn that much about people management, and I was very wrong. The most important part of our company that is an AI company are the people, and I am enjoying the learnings there.
All right. So before we get out of here, what's the best way for our listeners to reach you and learn about metadata?
Yeah, LinkedIn, Gil Allouche, or gil@metadata.io is my email. Always happy to help fellow entrepreneurs and really anyone that needs help. Then if you want to reach Metadata, our website, you'll have a pop-up chat immediately when you land and asking a bunch of questions if you're interested.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thanks for being so approachable. It's been a pleasure talking to you. We're going to end the show there. If you liked our show, please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and leave us a rating. Gil, thanks for joining the show. We appreciate your time, your insights, and yeah, it's been a blast.
Awesome. Thank you, Oleg, for the opportunity. I enjoyed the conversation.